Hello everybody, welcome to another edition of EDU 600. We are now in week number 5 or module 5, whichever works best for you. The reason we use the modules is oftentimes, or some of the time, this class is taught in a 7-week version. So module 5 can be combined with module 6 to make actually 1 week. We'd be doubling up with each one of these modules if this was a 7-week class, but in a 14-week class, the weeks and the modules go right along together. So this week we're taking the shift. We're going from qualitative research, which we've been studying the last few weeks, to quantitative research. Quantitative research, I believe, is the type of research that most people or more people are familiar with. This is the type of research that leading up to a presidential or some kind of election, you read online, you hear about it on the radio, wherever you might get your information, that candidate X is leading in the polls with 32% and candidate Y has 28%. So that is based upon what we're going to be studying. That's considered a quantitative design. And like I said, I believe it's a little more familiar to a lot of people than the qualitative designs that we've been studying. So what are we doing this week? Well, this video is a start. It's going to go, I'll walk you through what is expected, what type of materials are online, where you can find them, and then from there we'll go. I do want to talk about the qualitative critique that is due next Sunday, the 28th of February. So as you can see, I just felt like putting something nice and warm. I believe this was a sunrise. Matter of fact, I know it was. It was a sunrise last April. Oh, excuse me, 2 Aprils ago, because we didn't go anywhere last year. This was a sunrise that occurred 2 years ago down in South Carolina. It was probably 6:30 in the morning. I was out walking the beach. So I just felt like I needed some kind of sun and some kind of warmth, putting it in this week's material. So I hope everybody's doing okay with the cold. It's kind of setting in, and we will get through this. Okay, week 5, introductions. Sorry about the banging you hear. Something's going on upstairs. I'm down in my studio. I have a feeling it has to do with some teenage boys. So I apologize, but that's kind of the nature of my house. Okay, so we're in week number 5. Please watch this video. Provided an introduction to quantitative research. It's really the process of collecting and analyzing numerical data. Now, one of the topics that came out through the discussion posts came out through qualitative research, and some of the questions were, how do you even know if qualitative research is good research, if it's done properly? Because it kind of seems in certain ways a little bit wishy-washy, not as concrete as some other forms of research. That can be the case, but in quantitative research, it's very prescribed. When you're getting a sample, you know the overall population. Based upon the variability in the population, you derive a sample. There's actually websites that tell you what you need. And case in point, you'll often see national polls on various topics. They use a number of 800 for the national polls. Now, that is to provide an adequate sample that is statistically correct, and it's valid. A lot more concrete than qualitative research. Some of you read the research last week about the musician in the subway station. Not as tight as quantitative research. I'm not saying one is better than the other, they're just different. So, quantitative research is widely used in natural and social sciences, biology, chemistry, psychology, psychiatry, economic, social. So I have a story about quantitative research. When I was working on my doctorate up at the University of Maine, I had a very traditional chair of my academic committee, and he actually said to me, he was a biology major, that was his background. He was an expert in the field. And when we were talking once about qualitative research, he in effect said to me, well, that's not real research. Well, some of this could be, he was brought up at a time that really quantitative was only the research that was valid and was used. So by him knocking qualitative used in education, he was showing me his bias. He really thought that everything that had any validity had to do with quantitative. But he was definitely in the natural science arena. So we have information on quantitative research. I tie it in with, the COVID. So this week, what are we doing? Like the reading and the videos have 2 chapters, Chapter 6 and Chapter 7. Please don't get too hung up and feel like you have to understand everything in descriptive statistics and the visual displays of data. We're going to circle back to these subjects, but focus in on the introduction of qualitative research, descriptive statistics. Now, these are the statistics that you're describing the data. You are not making assumptions, judgments, statements about the entire population. You are only making statements and you're critiquing. You are studying just the data. So read these, but once again, please, if there's something in there you do not understand, I don't want you to spend hours upon hours trying to read and understand every statistic that's in there. We will get around to a lot of these things, and I will explain as we move forward the significance of the understanding that I'm looking for. So those are them. We have Jeff Beaudry here once again. Thank you, Jeff. Talking about quantitative research. This is an introduction. It talks about the population, the overall population, this sample. And to give you just a nutshot or a snapshot, I was involved with some research that had to do with the learning styles of Maine family forest landowners. We have about 86,000 landowners in the state that own between 10 acres and 1,000 acres. So the entire population that I was looking at was 86,000 people. I derived, in order for me to study this entire population, I pulled a sample. I derived the necessary sample to try to understand the population. So that's kind of the differences between a population and a sample. We'll get into much more detail on that, and it starts with Jeff's introduction here to qualitative research design. A brief video on reliability and validity. So these are concepts. They're applied to evaluate the quality of the data collection tools, meaning the survey, the tests, the measurements, and the observations. A big subject of the reliability and validity of a document. When you are conducting research, unless you're using somebody else's instrument, meaning somebody else's survey that's been thoroughly critiqued, peer-reviewed, you have to build a case for the reliability and validity. So this article doesn't get into tremendous depth, but it gives you an idea about the entire subject. Is the research and the survey instruments, are they valid and are they reliable? So a little more detail. When we were looking at qualitative research, this was not as hard. There were not as hard and fast rules when it had to do with this subject. Okay. I'd like you to participate in a discussion forum, and really this has to do with an article. I'd like you to read the article and then describe, explain, and apply the following concepts as relate to the data reports. So I want you to take a look at this, and then when we get down, I'll show you in the discussion forum what I'm really looking forward for you to do. This week, February 28th is the real first assignment that is due. It's the critique of the qualitative article that you read. Now, this is the group work that you did. So if you were in Group A, you are going to be writing the critique on the article that you discussed as a group in Group A. So here's the information. Critical analysis of the qualitative article. Write 1,000 to 1,200 word critique. So this isn't a really long, in-depth article, or assignment, but I'd like you to stick to this range. If you write 1,500 or 2,000 words, I won't mark you off for that, but I'm really looking for you to be concise with your writing and keep it in this range. You can always see where you're at, do a word count. Now, this number of words have to do with the qualitative article, excluding the title and the reference page. I'd like you to use APA formatting, and I'd like it written in your own words. You can use quotations, but I don't want the whole paper to be somebody else's work, meaning quotations. So these are the guidelines: clarity of the research problem, research literature, all of these, and I'd like you to use these headings: purpose, literature review, types of qualitative methods used, data collection, analysis, results, and your overall critique analysis of the article. So you may have been assigned the literature review or the purpose or the data collection. I have no problem with what you wrote initially. You might have modified it based upon your group discussions, but you're not. This is supposed to be in your own words, so I don't want you to go into each one of this subject or the discussion posts. Somebody else had the data collection. I don't want you to cut and paste that and put it into your paper. I want you to write your own paper. You can use the ideas, but please, if you need to quote somebody, if you need to quote a classmate, that is fine. Okay, so we'll be talking about this over the next few weeks. So that's the assignment. Qualitative critique. So we just talked about that. More information on that. Here's the guidelines. And I do want to shift gears for a minute and show you an example from the other class. Okay, so this happens to be Mark Smith. This was last October. This was the critique that he did. And this format, I'm going to just go through it. There's examples that you can see. If you follow this, you go into APA formatting. If you need any kind of guidance on this, what makes for a good cover page, there's information in Brightspace, and there's more information out there. So this is how he formatted it. This is the cover page, all the pertinent information. Introduction. This happens to be one of the topics. This is the format, double spaced. The first line is always indented, but this is the format that I'd like you to follow. Theory, stance, and literature review. Purpose, methodology, design, sampling, collection. And as you can see, what do we have here? We have 1 page, 2 page, 3 page, 4 page. So he did 4 pages, and I haven't run a word check on this or a word count, but I say that's in the ballpark. 3 to 4 pages. And then, I am cutting it off here, so I do apologize on that. So, and then we're going to have a reference page. In here, there's going to be a separate page. You put reference right up at the top, and then you format the reference. In this case, there's only going to be one reference that you're using, and that would be the article that you read. So that is it. That's a really that's a snapshot of the assignment. The assignment is due February 28th by the end of the day. If you have any trouble hitting this assignment, you're running into problems, please let me know. I'm more than accommodating if you need a couple, 3 extra days. So that is it. Oh, discussion topic. Read through this. Once again, you have your assignment to do this week, so I'd rather you focus in on the assignment rather than the discussion topic. But I would like you still to read the article and then answer these questions. So that's about it. I want to thank you for all of the active discussions that you've been posting online. I continue to be a little behind. I will comment on those. Keep up the great work, and if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'm here to help. Thank you, everybody.